Hello everyone.
This is Splash Course U.S. History 1.
Today we're going to be talking about educational reforms in the early 1800s.
I'm going to be talking about explanation of problems. Before the mid-1800s, there was no uniform policy of education in the United States. There were only 2 states in America that had compulsory school attendance laws. What does this mean? There are only 2 states, Massachusetts and Vermont, that required students to attend school. Let's go to the bubble of thought. There are few public schools in America available to students that couldn't afford private schools. Wealthy parents sent their children to private school or hired tutors at home instead of going to public school. On the frontier, 60 children might attend a part-time, one-room school. Their teachers had limited education and received little pay. The classrooms at school were not divided by age, so older and younger students were together causing problems. Many stopped attending school by the age of 10. Thanks, bubble of thought. Most children simply did not go to school. In the city, some poor children stole, destroyed property, and set fires. Reformers believed that education would help these children escape poverty and become good citizens. So how exactly did they go about these reforms?
Let's find out. The Common School movement was one type of education system through which all citizens would be educated. It would be managed by the local governments and supported through property taxes of the nearby people.
By the 1800s, many people started to demand tax-supported public school systems. By 1834, Pennsylvania made a tax-supported public school system, but it received a lot of opposition from taxpayers. They argued why should they support the school when their children would not even attend it because they were at private schools.
Many cultures were also opposed to the education system because they believed that their children would be losing their language and heritage. Regardless of this, however, 3 years after the first Pennsylvania educational reforms, 42% of children attended schools.
The first public high school, Boston English High School, was opened in 1821. Later, in 1867, the Department of Education is created in order to help states establish effective school systems.
It took longer for states in the South and West to get publicly funded school systems, but by the mid-1800s, people accepted 3 basic principles about school.
Schools should be free and supported by taxes,
Teachers should be trained,
and children should be required to attend school.
Massachusetts is making great strides in the area of education. The State Board of Education was reforming their education curriculum, establishing teacher training programs, and also doubling the state money spent on school.
Teachers also received higher salaries. Also, the length of the school year increased to 6 months. Other states followed Massachusetts and Pennsylvania's footsteps, and by 1850, almost every state had some sort of publicly funded elementary school.
Many of the other states around the country were following in Massachusetts' footsteps. However, women and black people around the country were not receiving the same rights to education as men were.
So Adarsh, who was leading all these reforms?
I think it was Horace Mann.
Who's that?
Let's find out. Horace Mann, or the father of American public schools, had no more than 6 weeks of education every school year. In his childhood was either him working or attending a poor school in Massachusetts. He practiced law and won a seat in the Massachusetts House of Representatives, and it was in this position that he saw the lack of education and he needed to figure something out. He began writing a journal called the Common School Journal. In 1837, he became the first secretary of Massachusetts Board of Education. He developed 6 fundamentals that he saw necessary for a good education. Citizens can maintain both ignorance and freedom. Just kidding, they could not. This education should be paid for, controlled, and maintained by the public. The education should be provided in schools that embrace children from varying backgrounds. This education should be non-sectarian, which means not involving or relating to a specific religious sect or political group. This education must be taught through tenets of a free society. This education must be provided by well-trained professional teachers. Horace Mann once said, "If we do not prepare children to become good citizens, if we do not enrich their minds with knowledge, then our republic must go down to destruction as others have gone it before it." Catherine Beecher was born into a prominent family. She was not satisfied with her limited education at private school, so she founded the Hartford Female Seminary. She offered her students a rigorous academic curriculum with an emphasis on women's physical education. She believed the purpose of women's education was to prepare them to be better mothers and teachers. Not a feminist, Beecher opposed women's suffrage. A courageous reformer, Prudence Crandall, founded the Canterbury Female Boarding School. She admitted Sarah Harris, an African-American student. Almost immediately, white parents protested and took their daughters out of the school. Crandall reopened her school as an academy for African-American girls in response to their actions. The town retaliated with racist laws and violence. Crandall was forced to close the school in 1834. Now it's time for the mystery letter. You guys know how this works. If I get it right, nothing happens, but if I get it wrong, I receive a punishment. Let's see what our letter is today. I beseech you to treasure up in your hearts these my parting words. Be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity. Let's see. Is that Catherine Beecher? What? Who was it? Oh, Horace Mann. Damn it, I should have got that one.
I'm going to evaluate the reforms. Let's talk about the pros and cons. The pros were, free public education was offered to many more people. A principle was established that required many more children to be educated. This would benefit the economy because more people would be educated before heading to the cities to find a job. Also, education was provided for the hearing and vision impaired. Specific schools were created just to help these people. While educational reforms made huge improvements to society, there was also some major drawbacks. First of all, only white boys were granted the graduated education. Women and black people were rejected from this graduated education, so there was a lot of tension on whether or not African Americans or women can be allowed in schools or not. In addition, taxes increased massively in order to pay for the public schools.
The education reforms adopted in the 1800s still have important relevance in modern-day society. Many people have better lives and have more professional, higher-paying jobs because of them. However, there are still challenges that we have to face. Standardized testing is a big issue because it solely bases kids off their intelligence on taking these standardized tests. It does not take into account their socioeconomic background and groups kids into one giant categorization. However, programs like the No Child Left Behind program allow for a more diverse education for all students as well.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Splash Course US History 1.
I'm Gray Ricka.
I'm Adarsh Rao.
I'm James Hopper.
And I'm Josh Guo.
Tune in next week for more. Look at my face when I'm doing